Yes, dear colleagues, good evening. It's me again, and I'm standing in for Alona. Alona asked me to make this short presentation. It's not a big one, it's high level, it's strategic. Vlad consumed half my loaf, and I have some comments. It's not related to the case that we reviewed. It's important, not just for Ukraine, but for any jurisdiction. Vlad expressed that opinion that was a peculiarity of the Ukrainian legal system. Some things are easier to accomplish than in Germany, that is law-abiding, law-obedient, but all those manipulations are universal. All this kind of fraud, in the region at least, it's easy to accomplish. So some rules that can help you avoid such situations. So you are here. We are at the stage of our development when the fourth version of high value, if there's something in much demand, and the supply is not there, of course, that attracts certain fraudsters. There are illegal requests, and that's our reality. This is not just about attempts to get access to transfers. This is also true for attempts to manipulate the routing, and we understand that that can, if successful, lead to gigantic losses for the operators. So these are the challenges that we have to deal with and fight, and as Vlad said, maybe in the nearest future we'll see no decline on such type of addresses. The value is there. If something happens, and that is the situation that we are in now. And for us as the registrar, it's a big problem that any kind of purchase, acquisition, or any other IP address transformations are not registered. Practically, that means that we have the right and see, and that is a negative development for the unsuspecting buyers. They are trying to purchase rights for the use of some blocks. If it's not entered into the database, that can at some point have negative repercussions, because there are no legal grounds to think that such addresses are used by the beneficiary legally. So we have to watch that. As the registrar, we have another problem, that people do not validate their data in the database, and this is a contractual obligation. But this is all banal, quite banal, but banal, trivial things. If the rules are observed, we would have, had them been unobserved, we would have had fewer problems. So it's the hygiene, what's the precaution against this? Vlad referred to many items at grassroots level recommendations, technically interesting, but the basic rules say, let's make sure that UC contact is updated and correct. That administrative information is updated and correct. This happens more often than we would suspect. The attacks, of course, that's extraordinary. They were preparing for it, but there are many problems that are explained by some trivial things. People do not update the information. Somebody who worked for 10 years gets fired and takes one's password with, or some problems, some disruption, some quarrel or fight among the owners. So we do not expect this to happen to us, but we can tell that practically it might happen. Another very important point is your legal obligation to be responsive, to respond to our requests. The point is that one of the criteria of the registration is you are stopping responding to respond, and the correspondence people set up a folder for the incoming documents. Once a year they look it up because otherwise it's not necessary. Now you understand from the case study why it is important. Say on a Saturday you just look through your mail and see the warning, so you could see that otherwise it would have been much more difficult to rectify. And once in a while, Alexis and I receive some alerts because of failure to pay the bills. We understand that those are living companies. It's impossible to imagine that they disappeared overnight, and when we ask them what happened, they say, we missed this letter. These are the letters that you're supposed to read. So you should not send them to your trash bin, and this correspondence is legally relevant, I can assume. Now the legal relevance about it. If any change happens to you, your new address, new some major acquisition, whatever happens of legal nature should be reflected there. And that's your security. And we also demand that for the contracts that we sign, but apart from this being your contractual obligation, that's the logical thing. And with RIPE NCC, you should be as open as possible, transparent, and you should not think that that will pass, that you can get away with it. I'm not pointing any fingers here, but you see, we heard that question, what if I just send you a false passport? That's just a practical joke. Well, I am also full of humor, but even on the 1st of April, I don't think that this is a good idea, especially if we discover that this is a false passport. Making a practical joke of it is not a good idea. It's not a mistake. We understand that this is an intentional attempt to present us with false documents. And I would like to tell you, you should understand this. IP resources, you see, are not just things that belong to RIP NCC, and you should not think that this is a victimless crime. This is there's no victim. Well, people got access to resources. This is not really so, because the resource is limited, and if you get this exit, you you an offense. You commit an offense, and that's your contractual obligation. Should set up the process for legally relevant documents that you submit to the RIPE database on behalf of the third parties. Let's use your contractual obligation. System address distribution is hierarchical. We have the contract with the RIPE NCC, some LAM, and if this LTD does something with that another LTD, we do not know anything about these companies, both of them, but we need some verified information from you that you submit on behalf of that other link of your hierarchy. And that's your contractual obligation. Please be very careful about it, because it so happened that there's opinion that there's some set of rights and there are no commitments or obligations corresponding. This is not true. We understood that from the case study presented to you. We have quite a few of them, maybe not so offensive and arrogant, but there were many cases solved in a positive way. So whatever happens, whatever doubts you might have, please come to us first. And if you think that something is wrong, that the information is not clean, is not safe, that's a relationship thing. I will give you your time. You can take your time fixing something. To err is human, but this tolerance cannot be without end. And all our activities are responsive. They are reactive, because that's how we react to something that is fraudulent. We provide adequate response, and your experience with us should be as smooth as possible. But I've said it before, and I have to say it again. We have to save community from bad actors, from fraudsters, keep it safe, keep it secured, and the contractual obligations that you commit to constitute a very important step, because then you can lower the risks. A very important point is security not being your status. It's not forever. It's not granted. You can just lower the risk of some attack from a bad actor being successful. So we have to realize where we are now, and you should understand that this is in your best interest. If it happens, the resources are lost by you, not us. So that concludes my intervention. Questions? Roman?
I'm Roman Kabakov from NCC. My question is as follows. Several years ago, we changed our critical address, and I'm not sure that the paper documents were updated and the electronic version was updated. My question is how exactly can we request the information on which paper documents or their copies are owned by RIPE about us? Thank you, Roman. First of all, we have to wonderful ladies from right here, and one of them is getting ready to speak here, and you can talk to them directly. Also, we have an email, lir help.ripe.net, and there you can send your question, any question you have. Even if there is a language barrier, you can ask your initial question in English. But if there is some lack of understanding, we have also employees speaking different languages, and you can request someone who speaks your language to work with you. I would like to add two things. First of all, in order to write to LIR help and so on and so forth, you do not need to think about the formalities or how exactly to phrase your question. You're writing to people. They understand people's language. So whatever question you have, just write to us. We are not some kind of big bureaucratic organization with which you have to follow certain rules, otherwise you will get no results. So if you don't understand something, just put it in any words you want and request help. And also, quite often, I repeat this again and again. That's another occasion to emphasize this. LIR in English, or LIR in Russian. This abbreviation hides behind itself one important fact. The letter R in this abbreviation means registry, which means that you are the registrar performing certain procedures, and you have to do certain things. You are not merely a client who paid money and now is entitled to demand something. You are a local internet registry. You are a part of our process, and it's important for you to follow through with your obligations as a registrar. Maxim Tulyev, net assist. I've got a simple question. You discussed this possibility of stealing resources. Were there any cases where you were able to cancel out the transfer that already happened? Unfortunately, I have no answer. I'm not from that department. I don't have those statistics. As far as I know, yes, this happened, but we do not know any, we have no statistics at all. So since the number of users is quite big, it is impossible to have the answer no. Okay, if the transfer of resources has already happened, is there a chance to bring them back? Yes, there is such a chance. I asked this question informally, and yes, I was told that this indeed happened, but I don't have any more information. So even if the incident has happened, there is some chance. And if the operator is left without any resources, of course the business is destroyed, but still. And in the previous case, something that would be good, the blocking of operation of that business, it happened quite fast, and they continued to use the resources. But the example you are given is more complicated. Even if the resources were transferred, we still have to use the presumption of being unguilty. So this could be a legitimate buyer, that third party, and we also need to consider such a possibility and to respect them. if this is true. There is a good joke when a millionaire dies and goes to the afterlife, and he says, I donated so much to the church, and he's been told, don't worry, we will give you money back. So when your business is destroyed, okay, you can get your resources back, but what are you gonna do with that? I see no other questions about this presentation. Thank you, Maxim.